What's up, guys? Welcome back to Maddie and Daddy vlogs. I hope you had a fantastic 4th of July. Unless you're not American, you don't celebrate. I hope you had a fantastic week. All right. For those who don't know, I like to do a couple different things on this channel. Most of it's catered to being a new dad, but every once in a while I throw in a curveball. Today is going to be one of those days. For those who don't know, I'm a huge MMA fan. I live in the fight capital of the world. And this weekend is one of the biggest cards, if not the biggest, UFC card of the year. UFC 239, headlined by Jon Jones, putting up his light heavyweight title against Thiago Santos. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about only the main card and make my predictions and picks off that one. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on every single fight, but I will spend a lot of my time on the co-main event and the main event. Of course, the co-main event being Amanda Nunes, the female phenom who is holding 2 titles, not 1, but 2. She is the women's featherweight champion and the women's bantamweight champion. And she is a beast going up against a former bantamweight champion in Holm. I'm going to break down that fight and I'm going to break down the Jon Jones fight. But let's talk about the opening fight on the card. Diego Sanchez versus Michael Chiesa. Now, to the MMA casuals, you might not like this fight too much or might not really know, but Diego Sanchez goes way back. He's a legend in the game. He brings that energy, that fight energy that you want to watch his fights because it has fight of the night written all over it. As a matter of fact, I'm picking this fight as fight of the night just because these are 2 guys who are game to throw down. Diego Sanchez is fantastic at wrestling, does a really good job at that, while Michael Chiesa has more of a jiu-jitsu background, so that'll be interesting to watch. Will it be the stand-up? Is it going to be a stand-up trade of leather kind of fight, or is one guy going to get the other guy down? Lately, Diego Sanchez has made it a point to fight Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighters to try to take them down and hold them down, so I think this is going to be a fantastic fight. My pick for this fight is Diego Sanchez. He's just a legend in the game. I love watching him. I do think he's a couple fights out from probably retiring. If not this fight, maybe the next 2 fights, depending on how they go. I can definitely see him hanging the gloves up. But I do pick him for this fight. Next on the fight card will be Jan Blachowicz. I think I'm saying that right. Versus the former middleweight champion, Luke Rockhold, who is making his debut at 205. And I gotta be honest, I'm excited to see how Luke does at light heavyweight. Right now, it's kind of all thrown up in the air. DC, I don't think is coming back down to light heavyweight anytime soon, maybe ever. Probably not ever. Alexander Gustafsson just retired within the past couple months. So we see a couple guys moving up. Johnny Walker, there's the Reyes dude, he's coming up in the game. So there's a lot of different guys who are willing to make a splash. But as of right now, if there's anybody who can come up from middleweight and make a splash right off the bat, I truly believe it's Luke Rockhold. Watching him in a couple interviews this week, he's talked about how 185 was draining on him and it was having an effect on what he was able to do, how he was able to, he had to pick his shots because he didn't want to waste energy. I think at 205, he's a fantastic striker, amazing grappler, and his ground game is second to none. I think that he can make a splash. My only fear for Luke Rockhold is he does tend to carry his chin a little high. If you've seen him in any of the fights where he gets knocked out, that's typically where they find it. The chin is pretty high. So I think Luke will win this fight. In the long run, I don't know. He's talking about fighting Jon Jones already. I don't know if that's going to be in the cards for him. Potentially, but I'm curious to see this revival of 185ers going up to 205. Chris Weidman has talked about going up to 205. So it'll be interesting to see these guys healthier, more confident in their skill set because they know they don't have to cut that additional weight. Jan Blachowicz, very quiet, very silent dude. He does have power. He does tend to be a little stiff, but sometimes the power is all you need. So does he have the potential to knock out Luke Rockhold? Absolutely. Will he knock out Luke Rockhold? I don't think so. I think Luke is going to find a way to get this done. I have Luke Rockhold winning by submission. round 2. All right, let's talk about the next fight, the third fight on the card, which will be Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. I think this fight is also going to be a fun fight. It might be boring to casuals, but it depends on how the fight goes. Jorge is planning on going in there, throwing leather, knocking out Ben Askren. I know that for a fact. He ain't going to try to wrestle him because that's a lost cause. He's going to try to keep the fight standing, and he's going to try to knock out Ben Askren. But that's easier said than done. Ben Askren is, by all accounts, a beast when it comes to wrestling. To me, he's the equivalent, what Damian Maia is to jiu-jitsu, Ben Askren is to wrestling. And because of that, a lot of people don't like watching their fights. Me personally, I do. Damian Maia just fought in the last week, and I loved watching it because for as many times as we say, man, I wish he would do something different, I'm also saying, well, I wish somebody would stop him. So Ben Askren is that dude. When someone stops him, maybe he'll be forced to change his game plan. But as of right now, nobody's been successful. Although in his last fight with Robbie Lawler came really close to putting Ben Askren out. If you haven't watched that fight, if I told you to watch any fight to get you prepped for this card, I think I would start with that one. Ben Askren literally got flipped on his head, suplex thrown up in the air on his head. It looked like the fight was going to be stopped. The ref didn't for whatever reason, and Ben Askren went into zombie mode. And when he did that, he was able to implement his will. He was able to grapple, get Robbie up against the cage. The fight did end up in controversy with a submission win, where Robbie said, I wasn't out. Herb Dean called it because he saw the arm drop. Again, you can watch that and see what you think. But I just think Ben Askren, I like him outside the cage. I like him inside the cage. I think he's a cool dude. I have him winning this fight by decision. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but I do think he can win this fight. All right, let's talk about the co-main event and the main event. Co-main event, we have Amanda Nunes versus Holm. We have the current champ versus the former champ. And I'm excited about this fight. This is actually my upset pick of the night if I had to have one. Let's just break it down. If I had to pick faces to go on the Mount Rushmore of women's MMA, for me personally, and people might disagree, I would put Gina Carano. She was the first female fighter I ever watched and I ever saw kind of break into stardom and go above just MMA. You know, she was in Deadpool. She had her own movie, was an action star. So Gina Carano would be on there. Ronda Rousey, whether you like her, love her, hate her, she belongs up there because there was not too long ago when Dana White said, I will never have female fighters. And then all of a sudden, Ronda Rousey was crowned the queen of MMA. People really bought in and believed in her, and she was fun for a lot of people to watch for a while. So Ronda Rousey paved the way for a lot of females, whether people want to admit it or not. The third face I'd probably put up there is Chris Cyborg. Don't let the last fight fool you. Chris Cyborg, for someone who hasn't been in the UFC for very long and was fighting in other organizations, she has that name that she was able to carry into the UFC. But MMA fans knew about her outside of the UFC, and that's really hard to do, especially in women's MMA, but she was able to do it. She's one of the scariest women that's ever walked the planet and fought inside the cage, despite what happened in her last fight. That fourth position is up in the air for a lot of people. You could put Holly in there, you can put Miesha Tate in there, and you could put Amanda Nunes in there. And I think when it's all said and done, Amanda Nunes will not only be on that Mount Rushmore of female fighters, but I think she will be the women's MMA GOAT. When you look at her record, she's beaten Tate, she's beaten Cyborg, she's beaten Rousey. If she beats Holly Holm, it's hard not to put her in a class above everyone else. She's holding simultaneously 2 belts. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not easy to do. So keys to victory. I think Amanda does a couple things, well, more than a couple things. She does many things very well, but she's only able to do it for so long. Okay. I think her striking is second to none. I think she hits extremely hard. She's proven she hits extremely hard. She's able to cut off the cage. She tends to be the aggressor. She stalks and walks down her opponent. She has ground game. My only glaring hole in her fight game is her cardio. I think if this goes past 2 rounds, the pendulum swings towards Holly Holm. Holly Holm has a much better chance of putting this fight away, because we know about those Albuquerque fighters, the John Joneses, the Holly Holmes, Diego Sanchez. Those folks have cardio for days. You know, they might not win every fight, but they're not breathing hard at the end of the fight. Hardly. So I think that Holly Holm is the right person for this upset, because there's just this quiet calm about Holly Holm. And she does a couple things that I think you have to do very, very well in MMA. She has a fantastic coach in Mike Winkeljohn. They've been together for many, many years. And he's legendary for drawing up game plans for certain fighters. And I think that if he drew up the right game plan, Holly Holm is going to follow the game plan no matter what. But I think it's just one of those things that if he drew up the right game plan and she implements it and follows it, she can win this fight. She likes to stick and move a lot. The only thing I would say is she telegraphs her striking with making sound. She's one of those fighters, so she might throw a 1, 2, and a kick, but it's kind of telegraphed because she always makes sound when she does it, so you kind of know it's coming. But she does it relatively fast and she's able to move. So as long as she doesn't get the cage cut off and she continues to move and she's able to kind of pepper Amanda Nunes with kicks and punches while still moving, and can make it to the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, I think she has a good chance of winning this fight, to be quite honest. With that being said, I have Amanda Nunes winning by TKO KO in the 2nd round. I love Holly Holm. I just think it's Amanda Nunes' time right now. I truly believe that. And I think she will cement her legacy with this fight. Because after this fight, there's very few people, I think, that have a chance at beating Amanda. All right, let's talk about the main fight, the main event, John Bones Jones versus Thiago Santos. Let's just break it down. John Jones, for all the trouble outside of the cage, people still love to watch him fight. You either watch because you love to see him win, or you watch in hopes that he gets knocked out. It seems to be one of the two in the MMA community. There's rarely people who are like, I'm indifferent about John Jones. You usually either like him, borderline love him, or you hate him. But let's break it down what John Jones does well. Striking, grappling, ground game, wrestling, cardio. His fight IQ is notches above his opponents. And I think that's the missing piece that people never really talk about. They talk about his length. Oh, the only reason he wins is because he has such a long reach. Well, if that were the case, Stefan Struve would have been the heavyweight champion for many, many years. Oh, well, it's because of his frame. He's got a really large upper body, but his legs are really skinny, so he's able to cut down to 205 a lot easier than anybody else. But nobody really gives him credit, or some people. I'm not gonna say a lot of people, but there are some folks who won't give him credit for that fight IQ that he has, which is on sometimes, I think, another level. He studies tape. He knows what his opponents are doing before the opponent does it. And he has this aura, this mystique about him that once that cage door, all during the week, these guys talk about how they're going to beat John Jones. And then that cage door closes and they stand in front of him and they freeze. Anderson had the same effect on people. Fedor had the same effect on people for a long time. It took a special fighter who was in their own mind, that person being Chris Weidman, to stand there, bite down on their mouthpiece, and implement their game plan rather than just sit there and wait for Anderson to clown them. If you're going to beat John Jones, you have to be that guy. So if I were in Thiago Santos' camp, I would tell him be aggressive early and often, that you need to maybe get one to give one. So you're going to have to get within that reach and you're going to get hit doing it. But if you can get within there and maybe, get a couple power shots to the body and go to the head, maybe you can knock John out. Something that fighters never do that I always wonder about is why they never implement leg kicks. we've seen a few times where guys start doing it, but they don't stick with it. So I would tell Santos, kick those legs, kick the inner and outer thigh, some of them calf kicks. Those seem to really put people down. So try to do that. Make John uncomfortable, because the more John is comfortable and the longer the fight goes out, the stronger he gets, the better he gets, the more confident he gets. And then we're going to see a 50-45, if that. With that being said, Santos, in the last fight, it was a fun fight. A lot of MMA fans liked it, but it was a sloppy fight if you watch it. It was a lot of him being unpredictable and kind of going in there crazy. And like I said, it was fun to watch, but if he does that against John, John's going to capitalize. Everything that Jimmy Manawa didn't capitalize on, John will capitalize on. The grappling, the taking down, the striking. You can't make mistakes against John Jones, because he will capitalize on them and he will hurt you doing it. So Santos has to go in there and fight a pretty perfect fight in order to take John out. And I give him the opening bell. It'll be interesting to see. How will Santos come out? Will he be aggressive? Because if not, I don't see him being able to last 3, 4, 5 rounds. So my prediction in that fight, I have John Jones winning by TKO in the 3rd round. So, yep, John Jones, 3rd round, TKO. And that's it. I think that's how it's going to go down, and we'll see what happens to the light heavyweight division. We'll see who rises to the occasion. We'll see what John Jones' plans are after this fight, whether he wins or loses. So that'll be interesting. All right, guys, that is the end of my video. Thank you for watching. What are your thoughts? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What am I not thinking about when it comes to this card? Like the video if you like the video. Share it with other people. Subscribe. I don't know if I'm going to do MMA videos all the time, but I definitely wanted to do a video for this being the biggest card of the year. One thing to note, all fighters did make weight, so the fights are on. Everybody weighed in, all 24 fighters weighed in on weight. So we'll see. We've seen day of cancellations before, but let's hope that doesn't happen in this case. I appreciate you guys. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back with another video, and I promise Maddie will be in the next video. But thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye.